again. It's Chapo. We're coming to you today with another movie episode. This is a movie that we have referenced quite a few times on the show, but maybe if you're like us, it's a film that has been in your thoughts in the last few months. I'm speaking, of course, about Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. His final film, made in 1997, starring Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. It's based on the 1926 novella Traum Novelle, Dream Story, by an Austrian author named Arthur Schnitzler. This is Kubrick's last film and probably his most enigmatic. Is this, similar to The Shining, his cinematic coded confession about access to and knowledge of secret, elite, wealthy sex rituals and murder? Or is it an incredibly dry comedy of manners satirizing these sort of bourgeois values and aspirations of upper middle class people sort of at the periphery of actual extreme wealth and power? One thing's for certain, though, it was the most traumatic film experience for Felix since his parents made him watch Robert Altman's Gosford Park.
I wouldn't say traumatic. It was just, I want to, add the caveat. I've been up since 11.
Okay.
So
it's a long movie.
It's been a long day for me. But just the Tom Cruise's constant repetition of the previous line said by any other actor in any scene with him, the piano in every fucking scene. I know that it's probably implied that like there's darker shit going on with the sex cult, but for the most part, it's just like girl on girl action. That's what this is all a cover up for. And that's what I choose to believe it's about, because it was 1997 and that was the hottest thing available.
There are so many things about this
Angela
movie.
Strawberry.
Yeah. There are so many things about this movie when you watch it for the first time. Or remember when I first saw it in theater, like after Kubrick had died. There's some question about how finished the version of this is. There raises so many questions because there's so many things about this movie that, or the people in it, that just don't make sense or just seem off in some way. We're trying to suss out the mysteries and the enigmas of this film, and to help us do it is our good friend Nick Mullen.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Sorry, I don't have an answer.
God damn it. God damn it, dude.
All right, well, episode's over. Go home, everybody.
I was playing Flappy Bird on my phone while we watched it. So,
but you've seen this movie many times before.
I rewatched it twice in the last month and a half after the Epstein stuff.
To what extent this movie self-consciously anticipates or even references that world is an open question. But I think the best way to do it, to unpack everything that's going on here, is go through the film, because there's a lot going on here, and I think it bears further investigation. So, gentlemen, let's enter the world of dreams.
Yeah. I mean, if there is some kind of admission or expose of a secret elite world, it has to be that they fuck kids, and you just can't. There's no, even Kubrick couldn't be like, I know this is going to seem rough, but it's for art, and we need to rape the kids. It's like when the FBI ran that child porn website for 6 months to catch more pedophiles. Yeah. So that's okay, and it would be okay if, I don't know, if Martin Scorsese's next movie is the pedophile of Sicily. It's I'm sure it'd be great. And if they have to get fucking Leo to improvise a child sex scene on camera, so be it. Let it happen.
It's the scene going into the Copa and Goodfellas, only it's into a daycare center.
Yeah. It's just the DVD commentary. It's it was Jonah Hill's idea, actually. We were just filming, and then they started raping the 8-year-old, and we just thought, this is great. We're just going to see where this goes.
See, it's interesting because I've seen this movie a lot of times now, and the thing that people get caught up on, or what was so controversial about it when it came out, is that all the sex stuff. Yeah, this orgy, and I want to describe the orgy later because it's one of the funniest scenes it is ever filmed.
Hilarious.
But I think people get distracted by it. This movie's about sex, because it's really not. Sex is the furthest thing from anyone's interest or motivation or behavior in this movie. All of that is just on a surface level. I think every scene and character in this movie that takes place is really all about money and class and social position. That's what people are really talking about, motivated by, and is the undercurrent that drives every interaction in this film. So let's begin. It opens with Nicole Kidman's ass.
Yes.
This was a period. This was
Her,
in 19.
her titties also.
Yes.
You can see the titties, but only through the mirror. It's her ass, which is lacking, that we have direct access to.
This is this is a director's trademark.
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick, there are tits in all his movies. He loved them.
She has poverty ass. So we as the audience, we have some idea of what sex is. We think we're getting to see Nicole Kidman's ass and tits when really we're only seeing her ass, right? And then through a screen anyways. The titties, which are, pretty nice, are being reflected through the mirror back at her. So she's really the only person that has access to it. We're not viewing them. We're viewing her viewing her own tits.
Mirrors are a very important trope in many of Stanley Kubrick's films. If you think of The Shining, every scene with a ghost takes place in a room with a mirror.
Yeah.
Also, as Felix alluded to earlier, a common trope in the film is the fact that Tom Cruise repeats almost every line said to him before he goes on. So it is sort of a mirroring.
It would be great if he
even
did that in the
verbal
scene where
mirroring.
the jocks are bullying him. They're like, yeah, you want to suck my dick? Do I want to suck your dick?
That is the first thing I've noticed the first time I'm watching it this time. Tom Cruise, and then as it goes on, other characters too have this bizarre affectation of repeating a line that's just been said to them as a question.
Yeah.
It's like they're playing an improv game where you just have to keep it
And they
going.
just suck at it.
Yeah.
Well, if you consider that the entire movie is a dream, that he's just having like a bad dream while his wife is also having a bad dream, he repeats every line said to him because all of the lines are originally sourced in his own consciousness. So it's actually originally him saying the line in the first place. So when he repeats it, it's because those were already his own words.
Interesting.
There you go.
There
Now
you
we're
go. Wow,
talking.
we're off and running here.
We're already cooking with gas.
We're through the mirror here. So it begins. Nicole Kidman is getting dressed. Alice and Bill Hartford are a very affluent couple who live in a gorgeous Upper West Side apartment. It's Christmas time, and they're getting ready to go out to a fancy holiday party. We see their world, which again is of very very extreme affluence, like very 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 rich people living in New York City. Then they go to the party of one of Tom Cruise, the doctor Bill Hartford's patients or clients that he makes house calls to, and this is Victor Ziegler, played by the director Sidney Pollack. They go to his house on the Upper East Side. That is, let's just say, I don't know how many stories are in the house, but let's just say 7. And then it's on the Upper East Side, and the initials JE are on the door.
Yeah.
They're at a gorgeous, gorgeous mansion on the Upper East Side, and they say hi to Victor Ziegler and his wife. They're warmly welcomed into this house, but it's immediately clear that they don't know anyone there. And Alice asks him, like, "Do you know anyone there?" And he says, "No." And she says, "How do we get invited to these things?" And he say, "This is what you get for making house calls." So he's basically only being invited to this, like, they're wealthy, but Ziegler is in another galaxy of wealth.
Yes.
Like, he represents real wealth and power and not their kind of, like, just on the outskirts, like, phony aspirations to wealth and power. They're at this gorgeous holiday party, having a bit of champagne, and we begin to see some of Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's performance in this movie I would describe as, like, aliens trying to infiltrate humanity by pretending to be like them.
Yeah.
Like, Nicole Kidman has one glass of champagne and then is just, like, tore up.
Yeah, some of the finest drunk acting I've ever seen.
Yeah, Kubrick would apparently like make them do like 400 takes. I mean, it took like 16 months to
Yeah, it's one of the longest film shoots of all time.
and it was like consecutive days of shooting or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I have read that he kind of had a disdain for them and tried to fuck with them like to an extreme degree.
I think it's very clear.
Yeah.
Like,
That is a great way to spend your last movie.
Yeah.
Like, he obviously didn't know it was going to be his last
well,
movie.
making
but
that
that's
movie
hilarious.
cost Tom Cruise like hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, the amount of movies he could have made while he was locked up on that fucking project, especially after like Mission Impossible. I mean, he could have been like Neo, probably.
Yeah.
He could have been fucking like in 6 different superhero movies.
not only that, but in the Lawrence Wright Scientology documentary, they spent those 16 months in London away from, the Celebrity Center. And that was the period where David Miscavige was losing his fucking mind because like Tom Cruise was like never more out of his orbit and control because guess what? He was being controlled by another Svengali like madman by the name of Stanley Kubrick. So, You see Bill and Alice Hartford at this beautiful, black tie holiday party. And they get separated from each other, and then each of them individually begins to be incredibly aggressively hit upon. Alice by this sort of like Hungarian count who takes a drink out of her champagne glass and is just like, "My dear, have you ever read Ovid on the Art of Love?" He's like a Sebastian Gorka figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're going back, you are cuisine.
Yeah, he slow dances with her in the entire time. Is like, "Would you like to see our host Michelle Malkin book? He has a wonderful John McNaughton of an anchor baby beheading the Statue of Liberty."
Yeah, what's that line? He says, he's like, they say women only get married so they can do what they want with other men. It's like, who says that? What is that? Who's that?
Yeah,
what saying is that?
He has
Believe it's from a PragerU YouTube video.
Yeah, he's just the worst rich guy pickup lines. He just goes over, chugs her backwash, and is like, "Have you heard of the opera? I'm in it." Okay, man, cool.
We were watching that scene. Like, I like to go to fancy parties with like a huge novelty straw and like from across the room stick it in fancy ladies' drinks and just sip their champagne. She goes, "I'm sorry, I think that's my glass," and he goes, "My dear, I'm absolutely certain of it." So he comes on real strong.
Yeah.
Real strong.
If I was your boyfriend, I would take you to get manicures 7 times a week. I'm 24 years old and a perfusionist.
That's the other thing we realized early on in this movie.
It's nice to. It's funny to imagine that character is not invited to the second party. He's just not. They're like, no, that guy's a creep.
I can't come. Sure he's not.
He can't come to the satanic orgy. That guy's gonna be fucking weird about it.
He would have been if he was at that party. He would have been talking to everybody.
Yeah, right.
That was the other thing.
He would just go up to all the women in masks. I'm immortal.
He wouldn't stop.
Man.
He wouldn't fucking stop. It'd be like you can't like invite a guy that's a cokehead to do coke. He'd be like, but I like it the most. That's the fucking problem, man.
That was the other thing, is that early on in this movie, I realized that there are many uncanny parallels between Tom Cruise's character and, shall we say, a certain Texas-based perfusionist,
back surgeon. He's young.
He's like,
doesn't actually seem like a doctor.
He's like, if you my wife and daughter, we go to FAO Schwartz every day.
He did not do any doctor shit in the entire movie.
Right. Every time, we'll get into it more, but every time someone calls Tom Cruise to do doctor shit, it's just like horny women talking to him, or just like it's someone who's OD'd and he's like says their name a few times.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Tom Cruise, meanwhile, while his wife is being romanced by Sebastian Gorka, he gets pulled aside by two sort of gorgeous models and party girls who begin, again, coming on to him like
real
ludicrously hard, like, driving a truck over him, basically. And they just try to escort him upstairs, and they want to take him where the rainbow ends, which will come back later in the film. But he sort of, sheepishly, he's grinning like a dickhead the whole time, trying to, again, not playing it off cool at all.
No, he's like, oh boy.
He's just like, oh boy, we're going to score.
This movie.
Like Flounder from Animal House.
I guess, like, if you take what Nick said and, like, imagine that there's implied, like, child trafficking, like Epstein shit. But also, I think the other thing that should be implied when you view this movie, that I wish I had done before I'd seen it, imagine that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, their characters had never had sex before the course.
It makes a lot one more sense.
Oh, yeah.
Their whole relationship and their dynamic makes way more sense if you figure like the furthest they've ever gotten is like third base one time.
They found their kid in a Cabbage Patch or something.
What's interesting, too, is like, I mean, I don't know if either of them are method actors or not, but like that movie destroyed their marriage.
Yeah.
And the scenes where they're fighting, I mean, it still seems like bad acting.
Yeah.
So you can tell, like, prior to that movie, they probably didn't have disputes. They don't even know how to act like they fought because they couldn't even just sit down and be like, let's just do it how we normally do.
God, Kubrick owns.
They probably communicated exclusively through their assistants or something.
Yeah, through pheromones.
They would just. This is the first time they ever had to communicate verbally.
Leak weird chemicals, and they have they hook themselves up to multimeters and read voltages to figure out what moods are in.
She's a quart low.
So before Tom Cruise can have a threesome with these two models, one of Ziegler's sort of flunkies is just like, excuse me, sir, like Mr. Ziegler has something he'd like to talk to you about upstairs. And he's like, okay, I'll see you ladies later. And he, goes up this like beautifully lit marble staircase. And then it's just like a hard cut to a completely naked woman passed out in his like dressing room. She is OD'd. Ziegler is there like shirtless but still having suspenders on.
Oh, he's putting them on.
He's putting them on. Yeah,
clearly nude and
he was nude.
dressed.
And there's something about him being shirtless with his tuxedo suspenders on that was like it's very disturbing.
Yeah,
and he gets Tom Cruise in there and he's like, buddy, I got a problem. It's like a Boogie Nights. Like, you think you better get some new shit there? Think you just got a problem? Do you, doctor? So he's had like a woman OD on like a speedball, and he's like, yeah, I just need you to take care of this for me. And you begin to see again what Tom Cruise's character's relation to real wealth and power actually is that he's sort of not aware of. He's just like, I get to go to cool parties because I'm a doctor, But like his relationship to Victor Ziegler is no different than the woman who just OD'd.
Right, yes.
Like he provides a service for these people. Like he is a tool for them to be used. And again, he uses his amazing medical skills to just kind of be like, hello, what's your name? You all right there? Just sort of like shakes her shoulder, be like, puts a wet towel on her head or whatever. It's just like, and he's like, yeah, she'll probably be okay. Like
most people from Columbus, Ohio, know more about treating someone who OD'd than Tom Cruise's character does in this movie.
Yeah, you never really figure out. I mean, I guess he's like just a general practitioner, but at one point they show him in his office and he's just looking at a woman's tits. And then he's like, okay, everything checks out.
Got 2 nipples?
Yeah.
Nice.
So he helps out Ziegler, and he's like basically like, can I get rid of her? And he's like, oh, I'd keep her around for another hour. And Ziegler's like really pissed off by that. He's like, fuck, really? And he's like, okay, I'll just get someone to take her home. So he just like, just taking out the trash basically. Yeah. So the party's over. They go home, and then while looking in a mirror, standing up, have sex.
Maybe. I mean, they kind of grab each other.
They do boob stuff.
They touch. I think that's as far as you can assume they went.
Yeah.
They're at most getting naked and just kind of touching one another.
Well, I like to imagine that that George Thorogood that's playing, they put on.
It's Chris Isaac. Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes, the baby did a bad thing.
Okay, yeah.
And that would be funny if it was Bad to the Bone.
I remember Bad to the Bone.
He's just slowly stroking her nipples. I want that old Tom rock and roll.
Hey, you want to put on Bob Seger and fuck?
We're making some night moves, baby. So that night ends. Their day begins, and again, you see Tom Cruise going about his daily routine as a fancy New York City doctor. Which, as Nick already mentioned, the first thing you see him do is there's just again in it like a incredibly gorgeous woman in his office. And he's just checking out her tits, and he's like, "Yep,
that was
nice weight, looking good, yeah, feeling good."
She's like, "Am I a bitch?" He's like, "I can't tell you."
Nicole Kidman is at home, basically, just kind of being sort of like a housewife. She's wrapping presents for it's Christmas time, looking after their daughter, go about their daily routines. They come home at night, wrap some packages. Tom Cruise in that scene is wearing UGG boots, which is odd to think about because this movie came out in 1997. Again, you have to ask yourself, what did Stanley Kubrick know about power and the future?
They were not popular back then. I'd never heard of them.
Marlon Brando died in those boots, pretty much.
So just Uggs and a diaper, huh?
Also, his costume in Dial-In to Dr. Moreau.
Then we get to what is the sort of inciting incident of this film, which is one of the funniest scenes I think ever filmed.
Yeah.
So it begins with Nicole Kidman goes into her medicine cabinet, and hidden in a box of Band-Aids is like a dime bag of just straight shake. Just like she bought it in Washington Square Park.
That's kill. If the weed is just like a green powder, that's fucking kill.
It looks like oregano.
Yes.
She rolls a joint, and her and Tom Cruise proceed to enact probably the most ludicrous impression of people on weed ever put to film. So bad that, again, like with Kubrick, I think you have to assume that this is intentional.
Yeah, there's no other explanation. Like Nick said, he was famous for doing millions of takes.
Yeah.
It's not like Eastwood. Eastwood does 2 takes maximum because he's afraid he's going to die before the movie is produced every time. he's done so many takes. He has to have picked the one. He wanted.
Apparently on Eyes Wide Shut, he made Tom Cruise walk through a doorway like 50 times
That's
for one
fucking-
shot.
Oh, that's so. He's just like he's Windy City Heat for Tom Cruise. He's so fucking cool.
So
Yeah.
like, even if it was just to fuck with him, he still had to pick the scene. You know, he had to pick the take.
But the idea is like the way their performances feel so mannered and like alien in a way. It's just like a sort of a product of the way he really like sort of deprograms and breaks them down, so that by the 400th take, their performance is so removed from any kind of convincingly human affect or any even like attempt at acting that what you're seeing is something kind of uncanny.
Yeah.
So
Which leans into the dream thing, because it's like, I mean, you know, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman aren't that shitty as far as acting.
No, they're not.
I mean, they could probably do a much better job acting high.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that goes throughout the entire movie. It's like, you know, he's like, this woman was murdered. You know, it's like there's this sleepiness to the whole thing.
So they're both just wearing their underwear,
Yeah.
smoking a joint, and they're
fucking clouded.
and they're chewing up in their beautiful Upper West Side bedroom. And Nicole Kidman introduces the idea of like,
Their daughter's at night school, I'm assuming. Their daughter that they pay attention to for a total of 15 minutes in the 6 days this movie takes place in.
and Nicole Kidman introduces the inciting incident by being like, those two women at the party, did you by any chance happen to maybe fuck them? And Tom Cruise is just like, you're crazy. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I would never think about.
Yeah, first there's like a Markov chain reaction between the two where he's like, fuck them. And she's like, fuck them. And that goes on for like 45 minutes.
And, you know, Nicole Kidman's like, oh, you don't think any of the women who come to your office, you know, fantasize about fucking, you know, hot Dr. Hartford? He's just like, no, I'm giving them cancer diagnosis. I'm telling them they're going to die. They're not thinking about fucking. And she's like, oh, really? Why not? And he's like, because women just don't think that way. And then she like goes into like a bizarre laughing fit.
But she's like, did you hear the way I just said fuck? It's clearly the only thing I think about.
And then she, you know, you cannot talk rationally to your wife after she's just chewed a blunt of just like kill, just like the high, like
the loudest of
the loudest of the gas you could possibly smoke. Like her brain is through the Stargate, and then she's like, and then Tom Cruise delivers maybe one of my favorite lines in cinema history, where he goes, Alice. And again, he's basically nude in this scene as well,
and
looking
hairless.
Smooth as hell,
totally hairless.
Dude.
He doesn't have a single follicle beyond the end of his fucking sideburns.
No blemishes either.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
nothing,
No,
there's
yeah.
nothing
Like
wrong
he's
with that guy's
CGI.
skin. Yeah.
It's the most Xbox 360 I've ever seen a real human being look.
The best my skin looks is like that hairless chimp. That picture? The chimp with his balls out, and he's just like, stop looking at me. That's like me peak, you know, when I'm tanned right in the middle of the summer.
So my favorite line of this movie, and maybe any movie ever made, is Tom Cruise looks at his wife and just says, Alice, this pot is making you aggressive.
And it's true. She was having a horrible pot trip off that straight kill.
I think she might have overdosed on pot.
Yeah.
For sure.
This is
For
the
sure.
second overdose portrayed in this movie.
And then she has a laughing fit that doesn't look like a laughing fit.
No.
No, it looks like she's having a seizure.
She starts like seizing and grabbing her stomach.
It is. It's like this movie. It's like they're trying to replicate every time they do something. They're replicating a human action they've read about but never actually done. Like laughing. I kind of know what that's supposed to be, but I've never done it.
See, I would
Getting
buy.
high. Same thing.
I would buy that like Stanley Kubrick like never smoked weed, but like, in preparation for this movie, he spent like
Tom Myers wrote that scene.
no Kubrick like spent probably 6 months reading every piece of literature and studying
tried
marijuana.
pot. Just got watching Tom's set, taking notes on what pot's like.
all to produce this scene.
Interesting. Cheech.
Yeah, Tom.
Cheech appears to have a higher tolerance.
We're bringing
than
in
Sean.
Tom Myers as a consultant.
Kubrick spent 100.
You need to tell me that you've tried pot. Yes, I have, Tom.
Kubrick spent $100 million on a sound set that looked like colonial Boston so they can simulate Paul Revere on pot riding through the town.
So this is all like all leading up to Alice's confession, like in response to Tom Cruise, her husband basically saying, women just aren't like men. They don't get horny. They don't think about just fucking guys they see randomly. And she goes, oh, how little you know. And then proceeds to confess to him the stunning, earth-shattering confession that one time, like several years ago when they were on vacation, she saw like a guy in a Navy officer's uniform.
Who's probably gay. A guy who's like, without question, a gay man that wouldn't fuck her, and he was like, "Hey, girlfriend," and she's like, "I want to have dinner with that guy. He seems fun."
The earth-shattering revelation that one time years ago she saw a guy in a hotel lobby dressed as a Navy officer, maybe not even in the Navy.
Yes, he was standing next to an Indian chief.
I met this man from Finland named Tom.
And then she's like, you have no idea. As soon as I saw this guy, I immediately thought about, God, what's his dick like? I thought about fucking him. And I basically thought in one moment in my head as a little fantasy to myself, yeah, I would definitely leave my husband to get piped down by this Navy officer.
She at one point talks about Tom Cruise as dicky.
Yeah.
A term no human has ever used for the male phallus once.
That marijuana-induced revelation and act of aggression.
It's like reefer madness. Like, do not do weed. This is what'll happen. Your wife will just go berserk.
Basically shatters Tom Cruise's psyche.
Yep.
It blows him apart inside in a way that is like so profound. And again, they're playing like an educated married couple that has like a 7 or 8 year old daughter, and this is literally the first time they've ever thought or broached the topic of like even just the possibility of infidelity in a totally imaginary sense. Like, yeah, one time I thought about fucking another guy.
Yeah, it's like I wonder how much of it is derived from that, whatever that novel is.
Traumhaus.
Yeah, that came out in fucking 1920.
Yeah.
1926, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like, because they had just discovered the vagina.
Yeah.
Like 5 years earlier than that.
right.
So they had no real idea of like women
Yeah.
get horny?
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
But then it's also like, I wonder what the party is in that version of. It's probably just people staying out past 9 p.m.
So as Tom Cruise is, on the bed, by the way, they should definitely be smoking indica. Sativa is what's Alice,
Too late at night for that.
Alice, the sativa is making you aggressive. I told you to buy that Girl Scout cookies. We need the indica. It's a body high, not a brain paranoid one. Phone rings. Tom Cruise picks it up. He's got to run out to do more doctor business. He's got to put on one of his best doctor outfits for a patient visit. You know how that. Goes.
No, he's got to.
Yeah.
No, he's the goat. He's getting his nails done. He's dancing around with his dick bouncing around in ASOS shorts.
So he's got to go out to see make another house call on another incredibly rich person whose like father just died at home. Again, why you would need your doctor for this? Very
dead.
odd.
Yeah, and it's not like he takes the body away either.
Right.
No, he
just
has no
shows
role.
up
He doesn't. I don't think they show up like signing any forms or anything.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, he's dead, which I already knew because he wasn't fucking breathing.
He doesn't seem like a competent doctor in any of his doctor scenes. This one is he just looks at him and he's like, damn, so he was alive like today.
It honestly feels like
He's like, "What's your name?" Like, she's like, "I think something's wrong with my dad." And he comes over, and the dad's completely naked in the bathroom. He's like, "What? Are you okay?" And she's like, "He did a speedball. I don't know."
it's like John Hamm on the 30 Rock arc when he was the dummy doctor who everyone patronized because he was so attractive.
Yeah,
No,
It's like
that's
Tom Cruise.
literally
and
this.
He never took a single class. They just passed him through because they're like, I just want a hot guy to feel my breasts and pretend he's a doctor.
That's how he got through medical school.
That's what the movie's actually about. It's not about elites. It's about how hot people just fucking get to do whatever they want.
like Sidney Pollack.
Like
There's all these hot women taking advantage of these rich people, doing their drugs, dying in their houses. Sidney Pollack will go to prison for murder if the police showed up there, he would get arrested. And he's like, they're her fucking drugs.
It's like, and he bought him for her. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the line repeating shit. That is how his character gets through medical school. Like, I don't believe he has the competence to do it, the character, but just he goes through there. They ask him questions. He repeats them back like this, and they give him his doctor uniform. They give him his gun.
I like to imagine
and shit.
Kubrick only used the takes where Tom Cruise forgot the lines. There was originally a different line, and he was just stalling. You know, they're like, "Do you want to go to the party?" He's like, "Do I want to go to the party?"
Checks his hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he gets a phone call, and like thus begins his sort of like nighttime odyssey, like, you know, into the dream world night of New York City. So again, he goes to his client's house, another incredibly wealthy family. The daughter is a very like sort of elegant and very attractive, slightly older woman who is shook up by her dad's death, and they're in the bedroom, and like the body is just like in the bed.
Yeah.
And
they're right next to the dead body.
Is shaken up, but then like it becomes clear that the reason she called Tom Cruise over is because she wants to have some like grief sex.
Yeah.
And begins like sort of coming on to him in a very weird, awkward way. She tells him about how she's getting married, and he's like, "You're getting married? That's wonderful." And she's clearly like not happy with this like, you know, math professor that she's engaged to, and they're going to move to Michigan, and she doesn't want to do that. And then she just like kisses him, and he's like, "I can't do this right now." And then her fiance comes home, who is played by Greg from Dharma and Greg, and one of the lead FBI agents on Criminal Minds.
Yes,
which, just as a slight digression, is probably the worst TV show I think I've ever seen. But weird to see Greg show up.
It's that bad. I've never seen it.
It's one of the most arduous and like just formulaic
of any genre
of the sort of like crime investigating shows. I would say like,
and this is an especially ignominious performance for him because he comes in and he is the math professor fiance that she does not want to move to Michigan with. She wants to sleep with Tom Cruise. He is, I would argue, as handsome, if not handsomer than Tom Cruise.
3 feet taller than Tom Cruise.
Like at least 6 inches taller than that man. How bad is his dick? Like this character, Carl, trash dick.
Yeah.
It has to be. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Just
he was
like
also
a fish hook.
He was also just using the daughter to have sex with the dad. That's why she's sad. Her father died, but she's finally free to leave this prison. So this is a tangent. You can probably edit this out, but you should do a PAX television episode. Like, do you remember PAX Television?
Oh, yeah.
Is that like the Family Network?
Yeah.
It was like some station, but the shows on that were fucking great. Diagnosis Murder, that like Scott Baio show where he was like a doctor. You remember any of those?
I don't remember any of those.
Oh, yeah. You should look into it for sure. PAX was great.
How do we like get that? Like, is it?
I don't know,
any
man.
of it, like,
it's
on
hard
Hulu
to
or
find.
anything?
Have you seen Diagnosis
No, I've never
Murder?
seen it.
That's with Dick Van Dyke.
It's Dick Van Dyke, and then his real life son, and he plays the chief of staff at a hospital, or chief of medicine at a hospital, rather. And then he solves murders that happen in the hospital as a doctor.
So just like, it's Quincy M.E., but like in a hospital.
Yeah, it's just like, just bullshit where they take something like a regular procedural or whatever, or medical show, and then they add like a spin to it.
Okay, so Tom Cruise leaves that house. He leaves the horned up, grieving daughter with her, limp dick math professor boyfriend, and begins walking the streets of like I guess it's supposed to be like Greenwich Village or something. Angry and like hitting his fist into his palm because he's like, so mad.
Oh, he's so
again. I need to stress again. I need to stress again. He is insanely broken up about his wife saying that she thought about fucking a guy one time and didn't do anything about it. Then he's accosted by a group of guys that like look to be like sort of Archie, Jughead, Reggie, and Moose out on the town from Riverdale, and they're like, "Look at this switch hitter coming up! Nice jacket, nice overcoat, faggot."
Yeah, this was maybe the most puzzling scene in the entire movie because it's like, groups of young men can be like aggressive for like anyone can be like aggressive and drunk for no reason, but it's like they're bullying him because he's wearing an overcoat. That's the gayest winter wear.
Well, that's the thing is, I'm fairly certain that they were going off to fuck each other because the way they went to that instantly, one of them even turned around and pointed at his ass, was like, "You want this?
You want to fuck my ass?" Well, they don't identify anything about him that makes him gay. They were just like, "Ooh, look at fucking Captain Faggot over here.
Look at this really handsome man over here. I bet he'd love to caress me. I bet he'd love to fuck me sometime."
He's like a 37-year-old guy. I mean, it's not like, and they're presumably in their like mid-20s. It's like this has never happened.
So he gets accosted. He's feeling emasculated by his wife confessing one fantasy that she had. Then Archie and Jughead gay bash him on the street, emasculate him further.
Yeah, not good.
And he gets to the point where he's sitting on a corner, and again, just like in the weird bygone dream era of 1997 New York. And I should underscore the other like uncanny sort of dreamlike part of this movie is that other than a few second unit shots of like taxis driving in New York City, all of the nighttime and daytime outdoor shots in this movie of streets are total facsimile recreations of New York that was done on a soundstage in London, like a gigantic like airplane hangar soundstage, where it was just like every little detail from like the little New York lottery stickers on the kiosks to the names of the stores are all a fabrication. They're all invented. It creates this weird like ersatz reality.
I don't know, man. IMDb trivia told me that they actually filmed that at the New York Casino in Las Vegas. And honestly,
to make Tom Cruise look taller.
The Empire State Building.
Yeah. I'm actually 37 feet tall.
So again, in this weird dream world version of Manhattan, he's just waiting for like a stoplight to change and is immediately propositioned by a lady of the night.
yes.
And it doesn't look like Manhattan at all. It looks a little bit like fucking like McDougal Street in the West Village.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit like that. But it's like nobody who lives in New York is hanging out on fucking like St. Mark's every night.
So he's feeling so emasculated that he decides to kind of like reclaim his manhood by immediately just saying yes to a woman who's like, "Do you want to have a good time? Have a good time?" She's like, "Yeah, I live right here." He's like,
You live right here.
"Okay." They go in her house, and he's like, "I guess we should talk about money." She's like, "Sure. How does 150 sound?" Then he's like, "What do I get for $150?" It's like,
No, yeah.
No, this backs up my theory on the movie.
Yeah.
Like, he legitimately does not know what she's selling.
No, the best part, yeah. So she's like, we should talk about money, and she says, well, it depends on what you do, and he says, what do you recommend?
Yeah.
he's like, can I interest the gentleman in the pussy this evening?
Well, it's funny. It's because his read on the situation in the beginning of the movie with his wife, where he's like, you know, guys want to fuck and women just want like stability and commitment, is like completely reversed. He just wants stability and commitment. He doesn't. He doesn't want to fuck. He doesn't want to fuck anybody. He doesn't even want to fuck his wife.
Yeah.
He just wants to like have his dumb family and go to these parties. And
You're right.
network or whatever.
He behaves in the exact opposite
Yeah.
way of
And
his like
she-
bullshit Evo psych reasoning for like why
she's
men.
a whore. Like she should just be able to be a whore, and he should be able to find a man to get married to.
He's like, whenever he tells Sidney Pollack, like, that was a wonderful party last night, he really means it. He had a great time. He loved meeting like another doctor or like a lawyer or a guy who works at the art museum.
Yeah, the way he's like, I went to medical school with that guy, which is, it's medical school, you know? I'm sure you had friends, but it's not like,
You were partying all the
it's
time.
not, you weren't partying. This wasn't a guy you grew up with.
Yeah.
It's like I went to a professional postgraduate school for a while, a little bit, with this dude who left, and he's like, Nick Cunningham, you son of a bitch. And then, like, just boys, and he's like, hey, I do shitty piano at this dive bar, and he's like, I will be there for sure. Like, while he makes time for it while going to watch his patients die. He's like, I should check in on that guy Nick. I haven't thought of it all.
Yeah.
Until I saw him the other day.
This is why it's such an alien character. He loves social engagement. Like, he just, anytime there's an obligation, he will be there. Meanwhile, half of the Upper East Side is dying in his waiting room.
So he's with this woman in her apartment, and she like begins to undress and be sexy. And again, he still has his leather gloves and overcoat on. He's like hugging himself out of fear and apprehension, but he's saved by the bell from a phone call from back home. It's Nicole Kidman calling on his cell phone and just saying, hey, honey, just want to like checking in here. Are you going to be home later tonight? And he's like, it's really hard for me to talk and get away right now. I'm looking at a dead body. I've been doing mouth to mouth for the last 3 hours.
I've been going to different women's apartments, looking at their dead dads and going, that's crazy.
Oh, Felix, you brought up that the daughter character who comes on to him is the character who's like, my dad just died. Could you like fuck me?
Groundbreaking character. Kubrick really is a genius.
He anticipated all of this.
Yeah.
So for some reason, talking to his wife on the phone puts him out of the mood. And he's like, look, I got to go, but I still want to pay you. You know, he respects sex workers. He paid her for her time. He's not going to waste her time. He gives her the money, heads back out onto the street into the night.
Can I admit something?
Yeah.
I went to the bathroom during that part. And when I came back, I thought the implication was that he just fucked her really good. She refused payment. I was really paying attention. And I was like, damn, I guess he is pretty good at piping.
No, he does nothing of the sort.
Yeah.
Does
I read the Wikipedia later on.
Okay,
because
good.
when I talked about it, you guys were like, no, he didn't fuck her.
So then he's back out on the streets at night, and then lo and behold, what is it? He's walking past the Sonata Club, in which, we should say earlier, one of the people he meets at the Christmas party in the beginning, his med school friend, Nick Nightingale, who tells him, he's like, I'm a jazz man, and I've been playing at this club.
Yeah, I left medical school, incurred all the debt, left medical school so I can leave my family in Seattle to play piano for pedophiles in New York.
So he goes into this dive bar, and by this point, another thing I'd like to note about this movie is it's a Christmas movie, and there are no fewer than a dozen separate individual instances of Christmas trees
And lights, too.
and
They're
Christmas
all over.
lights in the interiors of this movie. So he goes into this dive bar to see the jazz man play, and he says hello to his friend Nick Nightingale, the jazz musician, who, again, they have a totally weird, stilted friendship and relationship with one another. And they're like, how you been, you old bastard? Real good. What are you up to? And he's like, oh, I got another gig later tonight. But get this, it's so crazy. Like, they don't even tell me what the address is. And I play the piano blindfolded. And he's like, this I got to hear more about.
Which it like in the real world, that would suck.
Yeah.
There's no way you would be like, I got it. This has got to be great. It's probably Dan Ninen is also performing at that event. It's a corporate gig.
Yeah.
They think it would be funny if the guy can't see. They think that's what makes a piano player good. As if he's
Ray
blind.
Charles.
Yeah.
So while he's there at the table, he gets a phone call and writes down Fidelio on a cocktail napkin. And Tom Cruise is just like, he's like, yeah, one time like the blindfold came off a little bit. And he's like, let me tell you something, Bill. I have seen a thing or two in my life, but nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what I saw doing this gig. And the women, yowza, like you would not believe. And Tom Cruise, of course, is now like, he's on a mission to get laid
Right.
tonight. He's just got to reclaim power from his wife for smoking weed and telling him.
Nightingale, let me tell you, I've blown it 6 times in the last 23 minutes. You got to get me in on this
He's
party.
like, he's like, you got to do it. You got to tell me where the address is. And he goes, well, the problem is like you're not dressed appropriately. You need.
He just shows up dressed like Trudeau in that Arabian. He's like, Fidelio. Fidelio? All they said was a costume.
So his friend Nick Nightingale hooks him up, but he's still on the mission. He's got to get a costume at 1 o'clock in the morning in the middle of Manhattan.
Greatest city in the world, baby. Costumes anytime you need them.
Only in New York could you get a costume at 1 in the morning to go to a weird secret party. So then there's another really long scene where he goes to a costume shop called like Rainbow Costumes. And like there is a rainbow on the storefront. You'll remember what the 2 models who tried to pick him up earlier in the movie made reference to.
Mm-hmm.
So then he is sort of let in and negotiates with this sort of like sleazy costume shop owner played by the actor Raid Sherbega, who you may know is like a guy playing Russian in millions of movies you've seen.
Is he the dad in John Wick?
Yes.
No. That's the guy from Girl with the Dragon
Oh,
Tattoo.
no, the first one, no.
He's the dude from like Snatch. And
Yeah, he was in Snatch.
He was like the arm.
Blade.
Yeah, Boris the Blade. No, the arms
He was
dealer.
also the Putin figure in The Saint
Yeah.
with Val Kilmer.
Man, that movie's awesome.
That movie hinges, the plot hinges at the end of the movie on a light bulb coming on, because it's about fusion or something, and like finding fusion technology. And so there's a scene where like, are they going to get the light bulb on? And this entire square full of people staring at a light bulb, and then it goes on, and then like the music goes up, and it's like, it worked.
Be on the lookout for the Saint episode coming soon. So he negotiates with this sleazy costume store owner, and he's like, "I'll pay you $200 above price for your inconvenience." And like they go into the costume basement of this store, and he's like, "Oh, sir, like I'll help you up, blah blah blah." Then it becomes clear that like in the back room, there's like thumping going on, and he goes in there and immediately finds his teenage daughter and like two Asian businessmen who are dressed as women doing some like weird sex stuff, and he like blows up at them.
They're doing the next season of SNL.
He's like, "Oh, you whore," and like locks him in the room, and he's like, "I'm gonna call the cops or whatever." And all very weird. Tom Cruise is like, "Could I just get my costume and leave? Like, this is very odd." He gets the costume, he gets the tux, he takes a cab out to the secret location of the secret party. Now, when he pulls up to this like gigantic mansion, what was the name of the estate? It was like
Somerton.
Somerton, and you said that if you
because I
Google,
googled it because I don't know, the last watch through I was like, all right, well, what? Because it's such like obviously, I mean, it feels like the sign is designed so shittily that you like it's deliberately put there because they want to draw attention to the fact that this is a fake sign and not just like what that house happens to be named.
yeah.
But if you Google Somerton, I guess you get like a couple of things. But I did find some like article from like the late 1800s where there was a town called Somerton and there was like a house with a bunch of children's bodies found in the walls.
That's just every English person's house, though.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah.
But he gives the password, Fidelio, and is let into, they drive him up to the big house, and it's this like insane mansion, and there was like every limo parked in the driveway. Now keep in mind, this is Christmas time. It's a Christmas movie. It takes place in the Christmas universe, which means Eyes Wide Shut and Die Hard take place in the same cinematic universe. In one of those limos was Argyle.
Yes.
Waiting for one of his clients to come out, and he's listening to Run DMC and talking to girls on the phone next to a gigantic teddy bear.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's happening.
And then at one point, Carl Winslow pulls up to the driveway, takes a look around. He's like, "Man, they're not doing shit here. I'm getting a Twinkie. Fuck this." So then this is really like the centerpiece of the movie. This is what everybody thinks about when they think about Eyes Wide Shut. He gets on his costume and cape, walks into the mansion, and begins to see what is, in all honesty, probably like the lamest orgy ever conceived of.
It's some real sex nerd shit.
Right. Obviously, like, there are limitations to what they could show, but I choose to believe that there's no symbolism or implied meaning here, and it's just that billionaires get together to watch girl on girl.
Yeah.
Very mild.
Touch
girl on
boobs.
Girl. Yeah.
So it's like
do really elaborate rituals for no reason.
Yeah, like and the famous, it's like a Romanian chant being played backwards, while a guy who's like the leader in a red cloak is like standing in the middle of a circle surrounded by like 10 robed masked women, and then like when he hits his scepter they like disrobe and they're naked and they kneel in front of him, and he has like a censer of incense going around, and it's this like weird ritual, and we were like, and then they're all surrounded by other people in cloaks and masks watching this, and like we were joking like there has to be at least one guy there who's just like horny and he's like when can we fuck?
Yeah,
like what's going on
they
there?
don't like the ritual part. Like, that's what the richest guy does. And that's like the billionaire version of Cards Against Humanity. Like, they just want to chill. They just want to fucking chill. And this guy's like making them play this game because it's epic.
No,
they can't say no to Lloyd Blaine.
He's got the best prostitutes. He's got the best house for orgies. But he's also the biggest dork and insists, "No, man, it's going to be cool. We're going to do the thing with the incense and the chanting." Oh, God damn it. I just want to fuck.
We were laughing about the idea.
Oh, my God.
We were laughing about the idea of, like, there's just one rich guy in that crowd who's just some, like, fucking dipshit from Ohio who got a mesothelioma settlement. He just has a Thanos flat brim, no mask. He's like, damn, is Lisa Ann in this bitch?
Nick, you said one of them would be wearing the Scream mask.
Yeah.
No, but I liked it. Like Tom Cruise gets there and he's like, again, I am going to have sex to prove to my wife that I can.
Yeah.
And he gets there and there's all these like, gorgeous, like naked women. and then like they're all just standing around looking at him, and he just starts jacking off, and everyone's just like, "What the fuck, dude?" He's like, "What?"
Yeah, he just immediately makes a beeline to his friend at the piano and be like, huh, "Cool party, man, huh?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go talk to girls in a second. How are you doing? Remember college, dude? Remember when we would have like LAN parties in college?" I goes, "No, yeah, I talk to girls. I'll go talk to one of them in a second here."
So
my mask is, I'm like my mask just doesn't feel good, so.
the other funny thing to think about
is he's just like blowing it all night long. That's how they caught him. They're like, "Was it the password?" They're like, "No, you're just so bad at fucking." You're like, you have a mask on, you're at an orgy, a satanic orgy, and you still didn't seal the deal with anyone.
The one woman you isolated warned you to leave.
Yeah.
You're so bad at fucking.
Bill, you gotta get out of here. Yeah, everyone's making fun of you for being a loser.
The other really funny thing that we were thinking about, like during this scene, again, this movie was released in 1997, and this is like, one of these like Stanley Kubrick moments, like of interior shots that form a kind of like liminal space, like a kind of a weird hyper reality of like his symmetrical shots. Like think the bathroom in the Overlook Hotel, the White Room at the end of 2001, things like that. It's a very uncanny sense, like I said. But then you imagine, like, okay, this is the height of like ultra elite power and decadence, and then you start to think like, who are the people behind the masks? And it's like 1997. It's just like all three of the Pep Boys, Dave Thomas of Wendy's,
Orville Redenbacher,
JD Power, all his associates.
The guy who invented the Tamagotchi, the slap bracelet inventor.
The guy who invented the bookmark feature on Netscape.
Doug from Nickelodeon.
Clippy is there in the mask.
So, Tom Cruise begins to wander around the orgy, in which he sees sights, again, more depraved than you can possibly imagine, which include women rubbing each other's rib cages, squeezing each other's breasts very lightly,
Perverted.
Like it's like all like
a couple people having sex,
but like they censored it to get
sitting around, touching each other, going down on one another while wearing the masks.
That was the other thing. I realized
my favorite thing from the whole party is that scene where it's very brief. It's when they've like already caught him and they're escorting him out. It's just the guy dancing with a naked man, like slow dancing with him. He's not doing, because they can't show anything sexual. They can show guys like fucking girls or whatever, but even that's like as far as we'll go with homosexuality is he'll be casually slow dancing with a nude man while fully dressed himself.
Just the depths of perversion.
I mean, that was the other thing. Everyone at the party is wearing a full Renaissance mask, including the escorts, like the women who are part of this sex ritual, which means absolutely no top at all. Nobody is getting neck at this party.
Nope.
None of that going on.
But they show someone going down.
Yeah,
on
you
someone.
see a guy eating pussy with the mask on.
That's just he's nuzzling a woman's crotch with a Halloween mask.
Yeah.
Oh, also, Jim Varney Ernest was also at the party.
Yeah. Ace Ventura, the most respected law enforcement figure in the country.
Ernest fucked stupid. Well, all righty then.
Ernest goes to Little St. James Island. Vern, what the hell? I don't want to fuck a boy, Vern.
So eventually, like again, a woman, sort of zeroes in on him and says, like, you're in danger. You have to leave. Like you're not supposed to be here. And he's like, I'm not supposed to be here. And then the jig is up.
He's like, what do you mean I'm not supposed to be here? She's like, I'm sorry, wrong guy. Get back in there, buddy.
Fucking like a champ.
So the jig is up, and he gets brought back to like the center room and surrounded by a group and confronted by the man in red, who's just like, you had the password, but do you know the second password? And he's just like, and at this moment we realize like Felix, like your lion guy character could like get out of this situation easily.
He would be running that party by the end of it.
He would be sitting in the throne.
I bet you don't know the password, and that's why you're asking me. Everyone, this guy's a fucking pussy. He's nothing without that red ass outfit. He's better than us because he's got a chair.
Let's all fuck him.
Then you'd be like, fuck this stupid music and put out some fucking Stained.
Mm-hmm. Just be like, whatever, dude. I'm here with the fucking band. You guys are lame. I'm friends with the band, so that's how I got here. I don't know how well, you made money. You had to buy your way in. I'm a fucking rock and roll star's friend.
My friend
Nick Nightingale, motherfucker.
I follow Nick Nightingale on tour, dude. We went to we were boys from medical school. We used to study pussies together. We saw a top flight dead bitch up in the examination room. We cut him up, dude. That's how we learned how to fuck. He's just going off. They're all just silent. And then they're all like,
every member of the council and foreign relations just staring at him. Just like, yo, we would just go one hole, the other hole. You know what I'm saying.
Me and Nick Nightingale, he was learning how to play piano. We followed Prodigy on tour all the way through Scotland. And I got so fucked up off ketamine, I forgot what my middle name was.
And like behind the mask, Henry Kissinger is like, very interesting.
Dershowitz is like, can we rape him now? Can we rape this guy? I brought my nephew. My nephew Mortimer's here to do his first rape. Not now, Alan.
So yeah.
He hasn't said the password yet.
So he gets called out and like an idiot, like he just chokes up and like, again, never admit wrongdoing in a situation like that. Double down always. Mm-hmm. Just accuse them of,
right. Everyone else is always the real drug addict.
And then like, the woman who warned him like appears at the top of a staircase and is like, no, take me. I assume responsibility. And they're like, okay, all right, you can go. So he goes home, back in his apartment after his, night of absolutely striking out over and over again.
Blowing it. Just fucking blowing it. Never even really coming close.
He comes back to the apartment, he, goes to the bedroom after hiding his cape outfit in his office. Alice, Nicole Kidman is in bed. Again, having a laughing fit still, like having a dream that's causing her to laugh. 8 hours later, like she is still
I gotta get that pack.
Strong.
That stuff is fire. I need that. I need to just destroy my brain.
She's having such an intense dream that she wakes herself up from laughing and then proceeds to confess her dream to Tom Cruise because he's like, think how tired he must be. And then you have to listen to someone tell you a dream they had.
Oh, those are great.
And the dream is basically like a reflection of the party he just went to. She was like, I dreamt that I was like naked, surrounded by people, and they were laughing at me. And then the Navy guy fucked me, and like I was laughing at you.
Well, that was fucking a bunch of guys.
Yeah. So it's like an eerie reflection of the experience she just had, in her dream. All right. Jesus Christ. Back to the Somerton mansion. This is like a news clipping that Nick found here. Ghastly discovery at Somerton. 4 babies' bodies found in attic. The discovery of the remains of 4 babies in an attic at Somerton has created a great sensation in that normally quiet town. Discovery was made in a house known as The Green, now unoccupied, but lately in the possession of Mr. Thomas Welch, deceased. I mean...
And all of what's his name's house is green. He's got a green bathroom. The billiards room is all green.
What, in this movie?
Yeah, the Ziegler's character.
The billiards room is red.
Well, the lights are green.
Oh, okay.
Everything's red and green because it's Christmas.
There you go.
These are babies are dead. Jesus was a baby. He's also dead. So he was both of those things in the story.
And you know what? Jesus also is Jewish. You know what Ziegler's character is? Jewish.
Big time.
Yeah.
Actually, you bring that up. The interesting thing about the
Tom Cruise being like, Ziegler, I gotta ask you, a fucking Christmas party? Don't ask questions, Bill. All right, let's cut the shit.
The interesting thing about that, the Ziegler character is played by Sidney Pollack. When they started filming, it was originally Harvey Keitel.
Yeah, it was originally Sidney Poitier.
No, even better, Nick.
See, everybody's got a little murder. They do something.
Even better than that. when Kubrick was writing the screenplay, and I think this underscores that the movie is really best understood as a comedy, the person he originally wanted to play Ziegler was Woody Allen.
Really?
Think about how different that movie would how different that movie would be if Woody Allen was in that role.
Yeah, it would have been a madcap comedy.
Yeah, how prescient it is that he like attributed that article in from like the woman dying to the guy that would cover not only his own death but then the death of Epstein
and the death of John F. Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
So Nicole Kidman tells him the dream. Okay, then like day 2 starts, and in day 2 it's like the sort of dream reality is gone, and he retraces his steps from the night before. Beginning, like, he shows up at the jazz club at 7 a.m. and is like frustrated to find that it's closed. He's like, "Oh damn! I thought Nick Nightingale would be here."
I'm trying to get some morning jazz. And he just needs some jazz.
Yeah, he's just standing in front of the jazz club telling people passing by, I know Nick Nightingale.
Yeah, dude, I'm here with the fucking band. Pussy. We're those guys from the other night. I've been up all night doing pot, and I'm ready to fight them now. Dude, bro, I almost got pussy like 9 times. So if you want to call me a faggot again, we'll see what happens.
And then he goes to the diner next door, and from the waitress gets the hotel that Nick Nightingale's staying at for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Then he goes to the hotel, and we see a cameo from Alan Cumming as the hotel clerk, which is interesting because this one performance stands out against everything else in the movie. And I think it's one of those like Verhoeven-esque kind of things where like Alan Cumming was the only person in this movie in on the joke.
Yeah.
And like he's the only one who has any kind of like weird sort of comic affectation.
Who doesn't sound like a fucking zombie.
Yeah.
What it looks like is like, you know, Kubrick's like, hey, do you want to do this scene? I've been destroying Tom Cruise and what's her name's life. And he was like, that's hilarious. And then he probably worked one day and then got to fucking leave.
Yeah, no, he did all the Alan Cumming stuff in one take. I was like, yeah, you're done, buddy. Yeah. The hotel clerk says, Nick Nightingale, he came back at like 5 a.m. being escorted by 2 very large men. Big guys, 2 bad hombres. And, it was bruised up, and like they shuffled him out of the hotel, and he tried to pass him a note, but it was intercepted by the goons. So he's still feeling pretty weird. He goes back there. He turns the costume shop.
The outfit.
The businessman and the teenage girl, are coming out. They're like, "Bye, see you soon." Clearly didn't call the cops, and then proceeds to basically offer his daughter to Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
he's
very,
like,
very blatantly.
He's like, "Yeah, if you need anything else, don't be afraid to ask." As he grasps his 16-year-old daughter, and is like, "It needn't be a costume."
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the part where you wonder if this is trying to say something that the text can't due to mores and whatnot.
Yeah.
This is more in the direction of what this really means. It's not just having boring boob-touching orgies with consenting adults. It goes deeper and more perverted than that.
And also, another thing I'd like to note is that periodically throughout the movie, Tom Cruise is just in the back of a cab or driving a car, doing the tip very, very the Tom Cruise intense look. And then the film will cut to his fantasy of the Navy guy fucking his wife, and just getting
thinking about it.
Angrier and angrier.
Literally every time he enters a car, he thinks about a chief petty officer just banging his wife.
He thinks about Steven Seagal from Under Siege.
Yeah. It'd be funny to
now this pussy needs some more bouillabaisse.
To just edit in somehow just superimpose Popeye having sex with his wife, and then just cutting back to him losing it in the fucking back of that cab.
He's mad. He's still mad at Alice. So he calls the woman whose father died, hoping to do a booty call, but the math professor picks up and he just hangs up the phone.
So then he goes to the prostitute.
Jonathan Cockstein here.
Then
hello.
He needs to get even the scoreboard again for his wife's non-affair with this guy. He goes back to the woman he met on the street's house, knocks on the door. Her roommate buzzes him in and lets him inside. And he immediately he's not nervous. He comes onto her straight away, starts undoing her blouse, and is like, well, if Domino isn't here, you'll do fine. And she's like, okay, maybe you were with Domino last night. Maybe you should sit down. Maybe I need to tell you something. And he's like, all right, what's it gonna be? It's gonna be good.
Yeah, he's he like the way she braces him for the line, it's like it couldn't be anything than what she was telling him. But he's like, oh, she's gonna tell me that she told her that I'm probably good at sex, even though she had no way of finding out.
She's gonna tell me she knows I already paid, so this is gonna be free.
She's gonna say he had the firmest handshake I've ever felt.
I think we should sit down. I need to tell you, Domino said that you were nice. like, what does he think?
He's like,
happen?
I need you to sit down. Do you see that giant birthday present over in the corner? Guess what? Domino pops out. She's like, I did it for you, Dr. Bill. You're the nicest
What if
client
she's like,
ever.
I got to tell you something. Domino fucked that Navy lieutenant. God, no!
His name was Casey Ryback.
Damn it!
I've been promoted from cook, Dr. Bill.
This guy, every time. He goes back to the orgy, and that guy's in the orgy. He's like, he's here too. They're like, yes, it's the no Dr. Bill's club, and his name is also Dr. Bill. We're allowed to have one.
Everyone likes my New Orleans style Cajun cooking, especially everyone in Manhattan's wife.
Yeah, your family hates you, Dr. Bill.
They do. They really do. So the actual revelation, she's like, you're going to want to sit down for this. He's like, boy. He's like rubbing his hands together, licking his chops, eyes bulging out of his head. She goes, yeah, Domino got a blood test back last night and she's HIV positive.
Yeah.
And he's like, ooh. And again, remember when his wife called him Saved by the Bell?
Yeah.
So yeah, got so angry at his wife that he went out and very nearly got HIV from a lady of the night.
Yeah.
So he's fucked up about that.
Act like a lady, think like a man.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
He's feeling pretty bad about that. Again, walks around again at night. And then in a very creepy scene, begins to realize he's being followed by a large bald man.
I would love to see Steve Harvey review Eyes Wide Shut. But he keeps saying, we had a man write in. And he doesn't understand the concept of a movie. He thinks it's a letter that Tom Cruise wrote to the show. And he's like, if your woman is dreaming about other men, maybe you ain't take her to dinner or something. I don't know. Maybe it's time for a spa weekend. You're
going to go out there and get AIDS and look foolish.
Well, I mean, if it was Steve Harley, he would absolutely blame it on the wife for being trifling. Yeah.
Does he?
I think his standard routine.
Well, I think like old period Steve Harvey would, but like the new mainstream Steve Harvey would be like,
I don't think he would. Yeah, Steve Harvey would be like, you're just not doing enough for your woman, but like he doesn't speak in the language of any possibility of sexual inadequacy. It means like you got to hold the door for her more often. It's like you're not doing enough in the manners department, and that's what you would be responsive to.
So while he's being tailed by an intimidating bald man, he buys a copy of the New York Post and randomly finds, right next to Dagwood and the Family Circus. He goes straight for that.
Right, he's looking at Garfield and he's like, he hates Mondays. That's his least favorite day of the week.
Marmaduke.
He's just looking at Mark Trail, and Mark Trail's like, look, it's a beaver. They make a house out of the environment too. And he's like, they're like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't understand comedy.
And then he finds an article in the Post about, ex-beauty queen overdoses in hotel.
Yeah.
And he's like, could it be maybe the woman from last night? Then he uses his medical badge. He's like, I'm an officer of medicine. Please let me in this.
He can do any, he literally finds out when Nick Nightingale is going to work by going to a restaurant next to the jazz club and going up to the woman who works at the cafe and going, I'm a doctor. When does Nick Nightingale get in? And she tells him.
Oh, and actually, he tries to bluff her by saying, I have some test results that I think he'd want to know about immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he goes to a hospital, and they're like, yeah, she died. And he's like, can I see the body? And he goes to the morgue, and they pull out the slab of this woman, and he's just like stares at her tits for like at least a minute.
Beating off in there too. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I went to this weird party last night. So I'm in the music industry. Yeah. Do you know Nick Nightingale? I'm actually boys with him. So. What are you doing?
He just puts his phone in the corpse's hand and sets it up on the other side of the room and starts dancing and posts the video and says, "Surgery room, it's lit." But I'm big single though.
So as he's leaving the hospital, he gets a phone call from Ziegler, who is a little known fact, the father of White House speechwriter Toby Ziegler from The West Wing. They're related.
These all take place in the
Yeah.
same universe, and it's part of the larger Max Payne universe.
Yeah. So that he goes to Ziegler's house, and what is really the kind of the climax.
Toby giving one of those impassioned fucking speeches about how she wasn't a whore, she was a sex worker. It's not a speedball. It's heroin and cocaine. Speedballs are what you call it if you don't have any respect for the art of drug use. This isn't the 1920s. It's not a jazz club. These people love drugs. They care about drugs. I care about drugs.
So, and what is really the climax of the movie, he's confronted by a Ziegler in his like beautifully appointed pool room. And this is another one of these like Stanley Kubrick interiors that take on a kind of like mythic unreality. And Ziegler's like, listen, I know what happened last night. I was at the party.
I heard you
saw
got
you.
too lit last night.
You looked like a huge asshole in front of everyone. And this is like the moment of the movie that's like the real like Epstein stuff.
Right.
Is when Ziegler like basically like Tom Cruise finally realizes in that moment his class position as it relates to Ziegler's character, that like he is as disposable to him as any of the women or the woman who overdosed. And then he tells him that like the woman who overdosed at the Christmas party is the one who died last night. And he basically just said, there's nothing that happened to her at that party that hadn't happened a million times before. She got her brains fucked out. And the fact that she died, it would have happened one way or another anyway. Like, she's a drug addict. Who cares?
Yeah. What happened after you left is what happened before. Someone touched her boob.
What makes
the mask against her other boob.
What makes that character so intimidating is because it's like, he has all this power, so he doesn't feel threatened by Tom Cruise at all.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't.
yeah.
It would be a hassle to kill him, but he would do it. They would have him killed. So he's just like, look, man, just drop it. It's like he doesn't need to be like a mafia guy that's like, listen, we're gonna break your fucking leg. There's no need for
Right.
No, he says like, look, like it doesn't matter. He's like, hey, like life goes on. You know that, buddy, until it doesn't. And then he claps him on the shoulder and sends him on his way. And it's like really like that scene is a real climax of the movie. And it's very, very underplayed, but it's incredibly chilling. Like it's as frightening as like anything that Kubrick has done.
It's as chilling as like, the cameras outside Epstein's cell just weren't working. Sometimes cameras don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody was sleeping.
Yeah. The guards were new. The cameras weren't working. They took them off suicide watch. What more do you want? These things happen all the time. And there's just nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And that's
Sometimes highway bones break during suicide. Happens once in a while. It's not impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's when Tom Cruise really realizes that like all of this stuff, like his sort of flirtation with true wealth and power, like he realizes that like he is an ant to these people. Like he doesn't
He's
matter.
an Anthony Cumia to those people. They see him as
he went to that party and tried to do his Andrew Dice Clay impression, and no one liked it.
yeah. Have you guys heard of Andrew Dice Gay?
So he sends him home. He comes home, back in the bedroom again, wife asleep, the mask he was wearing at the party on the pillow next to her.
Oh shit.
That splits him in two. It would seem to imply in some way that Nicole Kidman was one of the women at the party, or had partaken in like at least in some dream level in the same.
He wakes her up. He's like, "Did you fuck my mask?"
He's wearing a little sailor hat.
Just Jim Carrey walking out of the bathroom. Like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you were here.
And then he breaks down and he starts crying, and he's like, "I'll tell you everything.
I suck at getting pussy. I can't do it to save my fucking life."
Some teenagers called me gay, and I think they were gay, and then I almost got AIDS.
I had a really bad night.
Oh.
I gave away all my money to a prostitute and then didn't fuck her.
I bought her a cake and she wasn't there.
So he breaks down, they come to sort of like they stay up all night, have sort of, I don't know, some cathartic moment in their marriage.
Just burning that gas. Just ripping that fucking, that fire fucking
Just-
Ohio medicinal.
Back-to-back blunts to the head.
Yeah, they're just burning through Dutchies. They're just fucking blowing through backwoods.
Last scene of the movie, they take their daughter shopping at FAO Schwartz. And again, they find the same gigantic teddy bear that was in Die Hard.
Yeah,
Coincidence?
connecting the movies, yeah.
I think not. And then, he's sort of like, what do we do? and Alice, Nicole Kidman, says, I don't know what to think or do, but like what I do know is like I'm very grateful to have you, and that like I don't think the reality or dream of one night can like change like the overall like course or tenor of our life. And he's like, do you love me forever? And she's like, don't say forever, but there is one important thing we need to do as soon as possible. And he goes, what? And she goes, yo, burn up. Bill, just burn him.
Yo, we need to blow that gas. We need to get fucking dumb with it. We need to get aggressive as fuck on those mids.
Yeah. And then the last scene is just like them burning mids in the house, just laughing at dumb shit.
And
watching
again,
watching Comic View on BET.
Right.
Just like
and proving that Kubrick was a genius. The credit song is Because I Got High by Afroman, which didn't come out for another few years, if you recall.
No,
Kubrick wrote and performed that song.
The last line of the movie is fuck. Produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick. The last thing he'll ever do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Did a curse word.
He did a cuss.
Ending
the movie.
He did a no growth.
Which, of course, there's Zizek has talked about that, how this movie is also like about Lacanian, fantasy, and about how the whole movie is Cruise being like overwhelmed by like the super fluidity of fantasy, and they need to have sex not to fulfill this fantasy but to push it away and turn their back on it and say, no, we'll just do the thing that can never compare to the fantasy that they've been pursuing the whole time, which is not about sex. It's about something beyond that. But there's this thing that happens in that last scene that it's some room 237 shit, but it is interesting. That is part of the theory of people who say that it is about elite pedophilia and that it's like a coded message. And that is that, so at the last shots before because the very end of them is just close-ups of them and then like the two shot of their heads talking. Before that, the daughter they're leading her through one of these aisles, and they stop at the head of one of the aisles and turn to each other. And the daughter, who's between them but behind them, starts walking away from them. And then two men kind of go up next to her, and one of them steps between the daughter and them, almost like she's being kind of taken. And they're both guys who appeared at the Ziegler's party at the beginning of the movie, including one of them who was a waiter at the party. So
interesting.
The theory there is that the deep implication here is that the daughter is being taken.
And that sets up the movie Taken.
Yes.
No,
I have a very particular set of skills. Repeating what people tell me.
Yeah, I have a very particular set of skills. Getting pussy, not one of them. I mean, you guys lay out a very convincing case that this is about Epstein and it's about like elite pedophilia rings. But I think this movie is about imposter syndrome. Tom Cruise has it, and it destroys his relationships with Sidney Pollack.
Yeah, but even before like pedophilia, because it's like even elites, like let's say it's politicians or whatever, they can't just be buying like top dollar fucking prostitutes. So even if you had a bunch of like politicians or whatever going to parties to fuck prostitutes, that would be pretty fucking scandalous.
Yeah.
So the idea that it would be wrapped up in some satanic bullshit where they are worried about like, oh, this is getting out or whatever, then they're murdering people to cover it up. I mean, like, that is kind of like, if that is the case, they're having those parties, that by itself is I don't know, alarming or or would be something to reveal.
I mean, I think like if you I'm like I'm not convinced that this movie is like a I take it about as seriously as the idea that like The Shining is about how he helped fake the moon landing. I just think it's something fun to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That being said,
it's like most art. It's not about anything. It's about what you bring to it, and it's a way to structure your own thoughts about it with the metaphors provided.
That being said, like I do think if you look at Kubrick's work as a whole, there is a sort of a thread throughout all of them, like whether it's like Barry Lyndon or Paths of Glory or even like Clockwork Orange or like almost any of his movies. Like the characters or actors that are in them are just sort of like these clockwork pieces as part of this broader mechanism of which they are sort of irrelevant to the whole of. It's why the acting in a lot of his movies comes across as kind of like weirdly stilted in a way, because it's like he kind of doesn't care about actors or individuals. But I'm thinking Barry Lyndon specifically, like he abstracts the individual as part of these larger, like sort of geometric groups and patterns where individuality sort of melts away and people are wiped out. That scene where they walk into, a musket fire in the French column. But on top of that is, I think, a deeper message about how dangerous power is. And like specifically after he filmed Dr. Strangelove, he never went back to the United States, never made another movie in the United States, never even flew on an airplane again, I think. And like put all of his money in like Swiss banks and gold and shit. He became like very paranoid about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aside, but people often, one of the Room 237 things with The Shining is people think it's a movie about the gold standard.
That is another one of the theories in The Shining.
He was a big gold bug.
But like, like in these movies, like there is a theme about how like, individuals are like just sort of bugs or like mechanisms in a much larger system of which they have no real control or even knowledge of. And that like true power is like very dangerous and sinister, but it's never fully articulated or realized because like you as both the viewer and the character can never really see or understand it.
Yeah.
And I think like that's what he's getting at with this movie. Like there's no real resolution to like what the party is. Is it a dream? Is it fantasy? Like what does it all mean? It kind of doesn't really matter because it's like, it's like we said about, whether it's Epstein or Manson or any of these conspiracies, like the JFK stuff we talked about, it's like, it's ethereal, it's vaporous. It's just there as this kind of like malevolent fog over everything. And you can never really grasp it because you're not meant to. And like there's no resolution
it's
to
the
it.
residue of your ignorance. It's like the vapor trail of the actual power mechanisms and people in power that you can never access by definition. All you see is like the outline created by like how the light bends around it, and all you can see is the bend. And then so you're of course you're not going to be able to make out what it actually is because you can only ever see it's backwash. You can never actually get anywhere near it.
Felix, though, I think your theory that the movie is about imposter syndrome is probably much closer to the actual satire. And like again, I think you have to understand this movie as an incredibly dry comedy and a satire of kind of like middle class manners and customs and their ambition to be a part of the world of true wealth and affluence.
Yeah.
Even though they don't know how on the outside of it they really are until like the veil drops and till the very end.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I'd seen this before today because like knowing how much Kubrick abused Cruise and Kidman, like that's very likely that this is a comedy making fun of upper middle class drivers.
Yes.
Like it very much feel like knowing how meticulous Kubrick was, maybe the impression he wanted us to have was that Tom Cruise's character is ridiculous and hilarious in a sort of subtle way amidst all this like elite horror.
Even though like whether not even that the movie would be about or not about like these elites having these parties, it's not even really something you have to expose because like people are aware of it. I mean, there's enough evidence, it's not like he would be able to shed light on these things happening.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if like thematically that even ties into it any more than like the fact that he's a doctor is. It's just sort of a given is that elites do have like weird fucking sex parties.
But like I said, like the sex in this movie or like the nudity or whatever, which was like the hook when it first came out, or like this orgy scene. It's like, as we said, like actually seeing it, it's like incredibly tame.
Right.
It's incredibly tame because I think all of the sex stuff or like the, the ritualistic aspects of it are a kind of sleight of hand. I think it's a diversion, distracting you with like, boobs or whatever. But like really the currency of the movie is money itself.
Yeah.
Like that is the motive of everything. That's the real poison
ultimately,
in everyone's veins. Is like the more money you have, the more evil you are.
Ultimately, the first party and the second one are just as bad as each other.
Yeah.
Right. The point of the orgy is like, yeah, it's not the sex. It's that they're in the club and you're not.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
And that and he's exiled from the club is because like it's not about sex. It's about acquiring things. It's about owning things. It's about owning people and using them and exerting power over them.
It's about getting all those women that have to stand there and then kneel and then kiss each other and then get
It's that's exactly the same as Tom Cruise being pulled away from the party to like cover up an OD from his rich friend, because like he understands instinctively, even though he doesn't really admit it to himself, is that is his use to this guy, is to be of service and to use discretion when dealing with these super rich people.
What does he say, like, when they first get to the party? The first party, he says...
He doesn't know anybody there.
He doesn't know anyone there, but before that, he says, this is what doing house calls will get you.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. That's as straightforward a clue as you're going to get for, like, one thing this movie is about.
And yeah, like, and the schism in their marriage, again, like, the like inciting thing is... like this absurd sex fantasy. Like, it doesn't even make sense.
Right.
But I think, like, again, that's a distraction, because I think what he's really showing you is, like upper middle class, like neuroses, and how like money and like is a kind of like, I don't know, toxic or like dissolving agent for like love and trust and affection between two people.
Yeah.
And like that's the real source of insecurity in their marriage, is like this striving and this ambition and this, like, even though despite how wealthy and how nice their apartment is, like this insecurity about all of it.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Eyes wide shut. I think we've cracked the case.
Yep.
Any
the wide eyes can close now.
We can. Let's all go to sleep.
Yeah.
Let's all go sleep in our big bed.
I hope I'm not
together.
Getting fucked by a naval officer in my dreams tonight. That would suck.
Any concluding thoughts, or have we pretty much polished it off? There we go. Stanley Kubrick's, I think, most enigmatic film. Probably is one of his hardest to watch, but very rewarding.
Yeah.
Rewards several viewings, Felix. So I'd give it another shot.
I don't think that's going to happen. But you really should watch Den of Thieves, dude. It rips.
No, I'm going to watch Den of Thieves.
Oh, you would love Den of Thieves. You would love Den of Thieves.
I guess I can, interrupt my fourth and fifth reviewing of Justified and The Sopranos to do that.
All right. That does it for us this time. Nick Mullen, thank you so much for joining us.
For sure.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.